Welcome to Uncovered. It's Wednesday. I'm Anthony, he's Ron, and we're about to uncover the MAGA propaganda that is not covered by the mainstream and corporate media. So much happening right now, Ron. Today is one of those days where there's literally the Trump regime is fighting fires in every direction. Maybe we should start with the Epstein files, because this is a story that is refusing to go away for Donald Trump. We now know that in messages that have been released, these kind of emails released, suggest that Donald Trump knew about the conduct of Jeffrey Epstein. They were released today, including one in which Epstein said, of course, Trump knew about the girls procured for his sex trafficking ring, and another that said that Trump spent hours with one victim at Epstein's house. This is obviously a huge story. Just explain to people how these have been released, because it was actually the Democrats that were able to release these additional files.
Robert Garcia, who's the ranking member, Democrat on the Oversight Committee now, who took over for Raskin, who's now on Judiciary. So Raskin and Garcia have been the point people for the Democrats on this, and they have done a masterful job from start to finish on Epstein. I mean, just every step of the way, they're ahead of the Republicans. And the timing of this has infuriated the White House. Because they wanted the story of the day, the narrative of the day, to be the shutdown is over, good news, we won the shutdown, whatever. That was their theme for the day, right? But instead, no one's talking about that. Everybody's talking about Epstein, yeah. And that's largely because of the Democrats. It's largely because of Mike Johnson, because Mike Johnson could have sworn in Adelita Grijalva a week ago, 2 weeks ago. She could have signed that petition. He could have adjourned the House. The clock wouldn't start on the 9 days to bring it to the floor to a vote. And that would have been the news story for the day like last week. But instead, he decided to wait, keep everybody out, not swear her in until today. In fact, swearing her in as we sit here and speak right now. Yep. She's being sworn in. Yep. She's got her right hand in the air. So, it's... So he made the decision, probably not thinking it through, because he never does think these things through, to make the same day that this Epstein thing is going to be signed, the same day that the government's going to reopen. So nobody's talking about that. So then the next thing is the Democrats then decided, just to make sure that in case people like Boebert or Mace or Green or Massey, the four Republicans who signed the petition, might be getting cold feet and might think of backing out, because they can back out right up until the minute that Grijalva signs this. They can back out. Once she signs as the 218th, that's it. They can't back. It's too late. Even if they wanted to, they can't back out. So literally they can take this right into the last minute. So I think to make sure that they would not back out, the Democrats on the Oversight Committee released some of these emails, which are private emails of Jeffrey Epstein to various people that specifically mention Trump, and in some bad ways. And so I think that sort of ensured that people like Mason Boebert, despite a pressure campaign by Trump today, would not change their mind.
The likelihood is, you speak of a pressure campaign, the likelihood is that behind the scenes right now, there really is a significant amount of pressure being placed on those Republicans who would form part of these signatories. I mean, we've seen Donald Trump and his people putting pressure on people in other ways, certainly when it comes to primaries and having Trump's endorsement, public humiliation and various things. Is it likely that that's what's happening right now? As this kind of timing, as they're kind of approaching this moment where this is about to come out, that they're actually putting Boebert, I'm sure Marjorie Taylor Greene they won't bother to take on because she is in this with both feet and they wouldn't dare. But there are others who are a little weaker.
Yeah, they're not going to try with Massey, because Massey will never change his vote no matter what. They're running somebody against him in a primary right now. Trump's already endorsed them, and they're running commercials against Massey in his district. Green, same thing. I mean, look, let me tell you something. I'm in communication with the Green camp this week. I talked to them, and she's legit pissed off.
Yeah,
she's not happy about what Trump said about her the other day. Trump in the White House trashed her a little bit, and she really feels that there have been there have been several other Republicans who have criticized Trump on various things, Don Bacon, many others, and Trump never said anything about them or to them. She feels like the reason why she's been singled out recently is because she's a woman. And she said that, and she feels like women cannot get ahead in the Republican Party. They cannot get into leadership. They don't get endorsed by Trump for big stuff. And so she feels like it is a misogynist party led by a misogynist person. And I don't think she's going to completely turn her back on the Republican Party and Trump, but she's not happy. And she's not changing her vote. So then it all comes, really the most likely suspects here were Mace and Boebert. So Mace, everybody was looking at Mace because Mace desperately wants Trump's endorsement in the South Carolina governor's race. She already said Trump is the kingmaker. Trump will decide the race. It's a four-way race. It's a tight race. The polls are close. She's probably right. South Carolina's Trump country. Trump owns the South Carolina Republican Party. And, if he endorses one of them, that person is probably going to win. So she seemed like the likely candidate. The problem is all the stuff that she said about being a survivor of sex assault and, how she has met with the victims and all of this. I think she's in too deep. Plus, it would just look so disgusting if she actually pulled her name off the petition at this point in exchange for a Trump endorsement. I mean, I don't know. It almost would nullify the endorsement. It would just look so disgusting. So then she put out this morning, she wasn't taking her name off. She put out a tweet this morning. So then it all came down to Boebert. And we learned from CNN reporting that Trump called Boebert, woke her up this morning, early 6 a.m. or something, and got her out of bed and asked her to come down to the White House to meet with the Attorney General, with the Deputy Attorney General, the FBI Director, and him, to put the screws to her. And I mean, the reporting was they didn't change her mind either. She's not backing off. So
let's take a look at a clip of this, because Caroline Levitt was actually asked about this in the press briefing room. Let's take a look.
Government reopening because of Republicans and President Trump.
But given your interest in transparency, Caroline, why are White House officials then meeting with Representative Boebert in an effort to try and get her to not sign this petition calling for the release of the files?
Doesn't it show transparency that members of the Trump administration are willing to brief members of Congress whenever they please? Doesn't that show our level of transparency? Doesn't that show the level of transparency when we are willing to sit down with members of Congress and address their concerns? That's a defining factor of transparency. Having discussions with members of Congress about various issues, and I'm not going to detail conversations that took place in the Situation Room in the press briefing room. Reagan.
I mean, it's just ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, I just wish someone would stand up and scream in that room and just be like, this is bonkers. Do you honestly expect people to believe any of these lies that you tell every single week?
They summon a junior member of Congress to the Situation Room to meet with the Attorney General, the FBI Director, and the President of the United States to pressure her to take her name off the petition at the last minute. And the press secretary comes out and claims that they're being fully transparent about this meeting, which was reported by CNN, not disclosed by the Trump White House. CNN found out about it. And she claims that Boebert was just there to talk about various issues that concerned her. I mean, she was summoned there by Donald Trump personally to get read the Riot Act and threatened. I mean, Trump then, after she left, put out a Truth Social post threatening Republicans who vote for it. that if it's brought up for the vote, you better not vote for it. And, I put out a tweet about the Streisand effect, which is, this is just so stupid by Trump. It looks so desperate. The Streisand effect is basically like when you don't want somebody to talk about something or pay attention to something and you tell them not to pay attention to it, end up drawing 10 times more eyeballs to the story. And that had to do with Streisand complaining that some publication published her Malibu mansion and she felt like she was kind of being doxxed, and that ended up causing many more people to look up her mansion online. So, that's what's going on with Trump. He continues, and Mike Johnson continues to make this a much bigger story by the way that they're handling it, which is terribly.
This is a massive problem, though, for Donald Trump. Like these emails that have been released, these 3 messages that have been dropped. You can't really, they're inexcusable in a way. And the thing is that Trump, because he's branded it the Jeffrey Epstein hoax, and now he's saying in this post, they'll do anything at all to deflect on how badly they've done on the shutdown and so many other subjects. But you cannot ignore the reality of this paperwork. This is a paper trail, and this completely flies in the face of this whole hoax that Trump is trying to create. This makes it real. Is there more to come? I mean, these 3 emails obviously are pretty serious, but some people are saying there's a whole lot more.
Yeah, they already released more later in the day. I mean, this morning Garcia released those first 3, but then several hours later they released a lot more, and so people are starting to go through those now, and many more of those pertain to Trump. And so that, what these emails show, the ones that I've seen, undercut the whole Trump mythology about Epstein that he's put out to his people for 10 years, which is as soon as I found out that I knew what he was up to, I cut ties with him, banned him from my club, and washed my hands of him. But these emails show that they were in contact well after that. Trump also claimed that he never was over at his place with any of the girls. We know that is now not true. According to Epstein, he spent many hours with one of the victims at Epstein's place. And Maxwell, that was in an email to Maxwell, which means that Maxwell lied in her proffer that she gave to Blanche in order to get herself transferred to the club fed. So, yeah, there's a lot more here, and it's not just Trump. I keep saying that. Everybody's focused on Trump, but I think that there's a lot more people in here, Republican people, like Trump donors, billionaires, possibly other elected officials. There'll be some Democrats mixed in there too, but Trump is not going through all of this because he wants to protect the Democrats that are in there. It's way bigger than just Trump. This is going to go through media, Wall Street. Trump is trying to protect a lot of other people besides himself.
And if we were living in a kind of civilized, functioning nation, the amount of shame that this brings upon the White House would have caused any other president to resign. Remember, Bill Clinton resigned for lying about a consensual relationship with an adult.
Got impeached.
Right?
Yeah,
got impeached. And so Prince Andrew has lost his titles over this. Peter Mandelson, who was the kind of attaché for the US from the UK, lost his job over this. These are very serious charges, but because Trump has gone his whole life denying, claiming he knows nothing about it. I mean, even did it with Ghislaine Maxwell the other week when he was asked, are you offering her a pardon? And he's like, who? I don't even know who you're talking about. What, Ghislaine who? I mean, like the acting that he was doing was so blatantly ridiculous that he is one of these people where the narcissism is so extreme that if he squints to make things disappear in his field of view, he thinks they've gone for everyone else. A little bit like his opinion about stealth bombers, that they really are invisible. I mean, this is a massive issue. My worry, though, is that there isn't a functioning judiciary i.e. the Supreme Court, that will protect America from this man?
Can we talk about Merrick Garland for a second?
Go ahead.
Because, obviously all of this stuff was in the possession of the Biden's DOJ for 4 years.
100%,
right?
yeah.
And they prosecuted Maxwell. Epstein was prosecuted during the Trump administration, but Maxwell was prosecuted during the Biden administration. So they knew all of this. And, the question is, why did Merrick Garland sit on this? Why didn't he release it? And it's, again, I think it comes down to, I've heard the excuse of like, well, Maxwell's case was still pending at the time. It wasn't pending the whole time of the Biden administration. The first part of it was, but also much of this had to do directly with Epstein. It would not have compromised the Maxwell trial to release some of this stuff. Epstein was dead. His appeals were over. There was no reason not to release it. The only reason not to release it is because you want to be above politics.
Right.
You don't want to be criticized for being political and releasing things against the opposition party that could hurt them. Or, so you can make two arguments of why Garland didn't release this.
Well, both can be true at the same time.
And both can be true. That is one. He wants to do things by the book, and DOJ stays out of politics and stays above all that. And, we're not going to release that. Also, you really didn't have any Democrats that were calling for this to be released, because I think that most Democrats really had no idea that it was as bad. It was when Trump and Bondi started going crazy to cover it up is when I think a lot of Democrats, it caught their attention, and for the first time. And they're like, whoa, why are they acting? They're acting guilty, so there must be something here. And so the more it kind of spiraled, the more we saw that that's true. So I think that's part of it. But I think, you could also make the argument that there are maybe some Democrats in there like Bill Clinton, and he didn't want to, muddy them up either. But the bottom line is this: it has to be considered a failure, another failure by Merrick Garland not to release this stuff to the public.
And yet, interestingly, the Republicans now are accusing Merrick Garland and that administration, Biden's administration, of doing a kind of psyops on Trump throughout and going after Trump and investigating him secretly and all of this kind of stuff, which was entirely legitimate. This is the other thing. Trump is almost admitting his criminality by pardoning all of these criminals. That's the other thing I was thinking this week. The more criminals that he pardons, the more he is associating himself with the criminal fraternity, and he just can't stop himself. And this week with the pardoning of the January 6th co-conspirators. And if you thought the 1,500 rioters were bad, now it's even worse. But that's who he is. He is just cut of this cloth of criminals. He only knows criminality. And that's also why he would think that people who are just doing their jobs, like career prosecutors and Jack Smith and the like, that's why he thinks that they're dodgy, when in fact they're entirely legitimate and their investigations are entirely legitimate, because he only knows the criminal thinking and presumes that everybody is working in a way that is in some way corrupt, because that's all he knows. That's his benchmark.
And what shows that is like when House Oversight, Trump demanded that Jack Smith be hauled in front of Congress, and Comer went out there and we're going to bring him in there. And Jack Smith was like, okay, tell me when. I'll be there tomorrow.
Right.
I won't show up with a lawyer. I won't take the fifth. I'll answer every single question you have. I would love to sit down with you guys, but it has to be in public. I want it in front of the cameras. Everything to happen in front of the camera. Nothing behind the scenes. So, that shows like he's saying, I have absolutely nothing to hide. Everything I did was legit. And I'll sit in front of you for a week, for days on end, and answer any question you want. I want the American people to know what I did. Contrast that with the way that the Trump regime operates, where everything is hidden. Everything has to be pulled out into the open, drag, kicking and screaming. When they're brought in, they plead the fifth, they lawyer up, Yeah, I mean, quite a big difference, and that shows you. But the thing is, the Biden weaponized DOJ. They coined that phrase, weaponized DOJ. Well, if Biden's DOJ was weaponized, why didn't they release the Epstein stuff against Trump? I mean,
Merrick Garland as a personality type, he is a kind of softly approach and doing it by the book, and a little bit like James Comey. And he's another one who's come out and said, okay, let's have a trial. Let's kind of get this out in the open. I did nothing wrong. But Garland, I just think there is this respect for the office of president and trying to protect the US on the world stage and not bring the office into disrepute that does cross party lines a little bit. I mean, Merrick Garland's politics is questionable. I mean, he's a conservative, right? But he was put in by a Democrat.
Yeah, he's definitely, he's an institutionalist. For
right.
Sure. What you said is correct. He wanted to protect the institution of the presidency, the institution of DOJ. He, I think, like Schumer, are these creatures of the institutions, and they can't break out of it. They can't understand that they are dealing with something that is much different than anything that they have dealt with before, anything that any of us has dealt with before since the Civil War. And so they can't wrap their head around it, and they don't know how to deal with it. And it makes them look weak and feckless all the time. I mean, and so it's I always consider myself an institutionalist too, but you just can't play by those old rules anymore when you're dealing with these people.
Things have changed. I mean, it's the same with Comey going public about Hillary Clinton's emails just before the election. The mindset of him was one of the institution doing the right thing without realizing how society, especially with people like Trump, weaponizing any of this information and turning it and using it for the wrong purposes. And I've even seen this week with the BBC admitting that, yes, we did selectively edit the video of Trump's speech. Now, apologizing for that was the worst mistake. Again, completely naive about how a dictator or tin pot dictator will take those words and amplify them and make them mean something else. So he's using that to basically give him license to say that the entire media is fake and he did nothing wrong. And he's saying it now. He's saying that was a great speech. The reality is he said those words. He said, if you don't fight, you're not going to have a country anymore. And he said, we're going to go to the Capitol. And whether he said them an hour apart is irrelevant. And by admitting that they did editing, that has now screwed the BBC. It's literally fallen apart. That's an institution where I got my start in the business, and I know exactly how they operate, and their naivety in this moment. They think they're doing the right thing, but by taking accountability, and yet they're dancing with the devil because Trump now wants to sue them for $1 billion.
And it helps feed his narrative to rewrite the history of what happened.
100%.
It's extremely disappointing. I was incredulous that they did that. And of course, you know how they handle it. It also plays into the fake news. Everything's fake news. Everything's being edited, doctored, when of course it's not. They were just doing probably a standard journalistic practice. But, the thing is that you also have to toss those out too. I wrote a tweet yesterday talking about this because I consume probably more political news than any human being on the planet. I mean, I literally read for my Substack newsletter 400 news articles a day from every possible, agency that's out there, left and right and center. And, a standard journalism practice is when you do a story on whether it's dealing with the Department of Defense, whatever government agency, DHS, you then contact the spokesperson for that agency and you get their quote. And like the Trump, every single quote is the same, no matter who they go to, State Department, DHS, DOD, it's all the same. They personally insult the reporter. They personally insult the news agency that they work for. And then they praise Trump, and then they praise whoever the secretary is they work for. And they never address the actual story or the questions that are being asked. And these news agencies print that.
Yeah.
That's in every story. So I always read through these stories about, the military or, pulling troops out of Romania, serious news stories. And then you get halfway through, and then, we reached out to so-and-so for comment, and this is what they said. You are a scumbag reporter. You're fat and ugly, and your paper is fake news, and Donald Trump is the greatest president, and Secretary Noem is a great patriot. And they print that shit in the middle of the story. And I'm just like, you know what? I know that's taught in journalism school, that this is the way that it's done, but they need to seriously reconsider doing that and printing that stuff in their stories.
I even heard Scott Bessent being, they kind of clipped him on NPR this morning, and he gave this bullshit answer about the economy, like absolute garbage, what he said. And then they just played it, and they didn't make any reference to the fact that it was obviously bonkers. There's just no pushback on anything. And I mean, it's over, basically. The journalism as we knew it, and it being a kind of additional protection in the democracy and providing pushback, that is done now. And really it is down to people like us in independent media to actually ring all the right bells and make all the right noises.
That's what I was saying. Like, that's what I was going to say, is that we are the beneficiaries of that, I guess. I mean, I'm not really...
we shouldn't have to be.
I don't necessarily
it's a
want
big
to be the only
responsibility.
people who cut through all this stuff, but there are often times when it's like the independent media is like the only ones talking about a particular story.
Right.
I remember I Googled something the other day. I forget what it was. Trump falling asleep in that cabinet meeting for 20 minutes, fell asleep. I Googled Trump fell asleep in Oval Office meeting. That was with the healthcare one. And it was like Midas, Daily Beast, a couple foreign press, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
No corporate media did a story on Trump falling asleep.
Should be the biggest story. Should be the
if
biggest
Biden
story.
had done it, it would have been everywhere, So
I also wanted to mention the CR. We'll talk about the shutdown in a minute, but the CR, the Republican senators have built in this provision to allow them to sue the government for Jack Smith's investigation, just as we've been discussing. And we've got this clip of Representative Michael Rulli talking about it. Let's have a quick look.
What are you going to do to stop this kind of dirty political tricksters?
Well, Jack Smith, in my opinion, this is treasonous. So let that word sink in. That's what this is. Jack Smith and his little cronies will destroy this republic. And I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. I think we could join together and stop this lawfare. I think Lindsey Graham was over the weekend making all the circuit, and he was saying how, think about it in committee. They subpoenaed Verizon and AT&T on their phone records. We do not do this. These are the same type of people that raided Mar-a-Lago and found nothing. If they continue with this, the republic will die. We have to investigate them, whether it's going to be in my good friend Jim Jordan or Comer's committee. We have to overturn every stone, find out what they did. How dare they go to Verizon and AT&T and they spy on our duly elected officials? This is the death of the republic. It's treasonous. Jack Smith must be held responsible and probably should do jail time.
Yeah.
This is very interesting, isn't it? How you take legitimate investigations and claim that it's spying, right? There was no spying. They do it when they talk about the search of Mar-a-Lago, which was done lawfully with a warrant, with Trump's lawyers present, and yet that has been turned into, it was a raid in the middle of the night. They went into Melania's closet. We knew nothing about it. And none of that is, of course, true, because Jack Smith, again, is an establishment figure, does things by the book. But the book has been thrown out now.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's something called minimization in search warrants and investigations, and that's like you put in place certain safeguards to ensure that you're only gonna get what stuff for a limited purpose,
right?
And you're not going to go into other areas. And so in this particular case, obtaining the phone records, minimization was done. In other words, the only thing that was allowed in those warrants that were issued to the cell provider companies, and I've dealt with thousands of these as a criminal lawyer, is the timestamp, the date, time, and the number that they called. In other words, like the actual calls themselves, they didn't get access to them. Text messages, they didn't get access to them. None of the substance of the conversation was requested or known. Now, you can get that easily. I mean, Jack Smith could have subpoenaed. I want all the text messages between Trump and Jim Jordan. Could have done that, but he didn't. He didn't. The only thing he asked for was who did they call and when did they call? Because he was trying to establish a timeline of when things are happening. So he could have gotten much more, but didn't. Specifically limited it to that. So now these characters, this was Ted Cruz who led this. This is supposed to be a clean CR, just about opening the government. This is what they told us. Clean. Nothing added to it. This is what they told the American public for the last 2 months. It's a clean CR. There's nothing added. And then what do we find out at the 11th hour, at the last minute? Ted Cruz secretly has John Thune insert this provision into the CR to allow them to get $500,000 for having these phone records. So the fact that Jack Smith got figured out what time Ted Cruz texted, he should get $500,000 for that out of taxpayer money. And think about that. He could file the claim now. And who decides whether he gets the money? DOJ. Who runs DOJ? Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche. So they are going to decide if Ted Cruz can get paid or not. The other senators. I mean, this is absolutely outrageous. It's so outrageous that Republicans in the House, led by Chip Roy, who's a real jerk, is up in arms over this. Yeah. And so, because it's only for Republican senators. It's not for the House members who got subpoenaed. The House members had their phone records subpoenaed too. It's not for the J6ers. It's only for 8 Republican senators. It's just so nakedly brazen corrupt. So apparently the compromise, because Chip Roy was demanding that it be taken out or he wouldn't vote for the CR. Apparently the compromise that has been reached is that he's been promised, if he votes for the CR, that they will take this up in a separate bill in a few weeks where they will try and strip that provision out of the law. So, but just brazen, naked.
Just the intention is an example of how this administration is rinsing public money in ways that nobody has ever seen. There is no oversight of the spend, and this was buried for a reason, and they just kind of worked it out. But you can't imagine. It's a bit like when they were talking about, Trump talking about, I'll find the money from somewhere. I always do. When it came to giving additional bonuses to air traffic controllers who didn't not come to work, or who did come to work. It shouldn't be this way, and yet there is more corruption there than looking to people like Jack Smith or Merrick Garland or James Comey or any of these people that they are now seeking to go after, who were just doing their jobs. I don't think people understand, and maybe you can explain it. If you are a federal prosecutor, you don't choose which cases you take on. You're assigned a case, you do your job, and you just kind of get on with it. And yet they're making it out like these things are all very personal.
And they fired all the FBI agents and all the prosecutors who worked on these J6 cases. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, if you're a career prosecutor working in the DC U.S. Attorney's Office, there's no way you could have avoided, having one of these cases assigned to you. It's almost impossible. I mean, you'd have to be in like a specific division, like a narcotics division or white collar crime, or, you'd have to be separated out. But if you're in the general crimes division of the DC U.S. Attorney's Office, you're getting one of these cases. So the fact that you might be a Republican, lifelong Republican. When I was federal prosecutor, I worked with career prosecutors who were Republicans and Democrats. We tried very hard not to discuss politics at work. It was kind of frowned on. And so if you're one of these people who just happen to be assigned one of these cases, you may be a Republican your whole life. You're fired. Your career is over. And that's not the way government service is supposed to work.
Just to confirm that Adelita Gravalja has been sworn in by Mike Johnson.
Yay!
Ending the 7-week standoff that prevented the incoming Congresswoman from taking her seat and clearing a path for a vote to release the Epstein files. Should we have a little wager, you and I, as to whether or not this vote is going to happen? Because I have a feeling that Trump is going to do anything, including like offer cash prizes to some of these Republicans not to do this. And what do you think?
Yeah, I do think the vote's going to happen. The big question is going to be how many Republicans are going to vote for it besides the four,
Yeah.
who signed the petition, because, there's going to be more, I think, that will vote for it. And the numbers I've heard have been, some people predicted 30 or 40 Republicans, which would actually be gross. Because here's the thing, they believe it's going to be killed in the Senate.
Yeah.
So a lot of them that are in these swing districts, and there's a lot more swing districts now than there was a few months ago. There's a lot of districts that used to be considered relatively safe Republican districts that are no longer safe after last Tuesday. And so you have all these Republicans in these shaky seats right now with an incredibly unpopular president at the top of the party. And, now you're going to vote against releasing Epstein, and you're going to instantly give your opponent an incredible campaign issue. So I think many of them are. So you have, on the one hand, you got Trump threatening them, which we showed they threatened them today, that they better not vote for this. And so you got that on one side, and on the other side, you got, obviously your Democratic opponent is going to hold this against you. So my prediction is it will be voted on the House. I think you're probably going to get maybe like 10 or 12 more Republicans that are going to vote for it. And those are going to be, I'm going to be all over them. I mean, you're going to see me on social media, if you follow me on social media, screaming at those, not the four who signed the petition. I'll leave them alone.
Yeah.
Because they did the right thing.
Yeah.
I'm going after the other 10 or 12 that are going to end up voting for this, however many there are, the cowards who tried to hide behind trying to avoid a vote on it. And now when there's a vote, oh, yes, well, now we'll vote for it just to avoid the political fallout. Yeah. Those are the real cowards. And again, they're only voting for it because they're banking on John Thune killing it in the Senate. That's what's going on.
And the thing that I think about all the time is, our priority should be with the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, who have brought so much evidence forward. And it even cost, in the case of Virginia Giuffre, it cost her life. And these testimonies are compelling. And anybody, male or female, should be completely open to recognizing that survivors don't come forward lightly. And if they do, it's essential that they are believed. I think in all of this, we seem to have lost sight of what is important here.
The work of Jamie Raskin and Robert Garcia the last couple of weeks is going to result in more Republicans voting for this than would have before. Raskin did, as the ranking member of Judiciary, was subpoena Maxwell's emails from prison, which, they can't deny that. That's Bureau of Prisons. They have to turn that over to the House Judiciary Committee. So you got those emails showing how she's been coddled in prison. And then, you got Garcia getting all the emails and stuff from Epstein and releasing that. That puts even more pressure now on Republicans not, to vote against this. If they vote against it, they're voting. The public now has seen all this stuff and is seeing all this stuff. And then on top of that, you got Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie announced today that they're going to have another press conference with the victims. I think next week they're bringing them all back, including more victims now are coming forward.
Right.
So they're going to do an all-out pressure campaign. Trump's pressure campaign and arm twisting, I think, is not going to work with a lot of people, because what the Democrats are doing and the handful of Republicans who are with them on this is much more effective.
Talking of Ghislaine Maxwell, let's look at one of these leaked emails. We're seeing here that it talks about how Maxwell has been afforded private meetings with visitors arranged by the warden, complete with snacks. The guests were allowed to bring computers, which Raskin described as an unprecedented action that risked Maxwell having unmonitored communication with the outside world. She's getting meals delivered personally to her cells after hours' time in a private exercise area. It is clear that this is all headed towards her requesting a pardon, even though Trump might deny any knowledge of it. What is the likelihood? Because obviously these emails today, they change things again. What is the likelihood that if Trump offers her a pardon, as he's doing with everybody, from the criminal fraternity these days, that this again is more admission of guilt on his part.
Yeah, I mean, she's asking for a sentence commutation, not a pardon. So, I mean, it's very similar. She's just asking to be let out of prison early, right?
Yeah.
Because she's doing 20 years. She's what, 60 something? So, I mean, she's a decent chance she would die in prison, with her current sentence if she has to serve it all. So she's trying to get out then. So I have already said that I don't think that Trump is going to do it until the end of his term. I think at the end of his term, he's going to commute her sentence. Maybe not let her out that day, but say, I'm reducing it from 20 years to 10, something like that. But I don't think he's going to do it anytime soon. I don't think he's going to do it before the midterms. He might wait to do it right after the midterms. But yeah, I mean, you see the privilege. I mean, she even has a puppy. She has a puppy. So not only is she like the only convicted sex trafficker in a minimum security club fed type facility in the United States, doesn't happen. That in and of itself is bad enough. And Raskin also got emails talking about how happy she was being at the new facility and how much better it was than the one before. And now we find out she's got a puppy. She's got the warden helping her with her commutation. Apparently the warden is not happy that he's been ordered to do that, to provide her assistance with drafting some of these things. And it's just disgusting. And now we also know today that she lied. She lied to Blanche in her proffer, because what she said in that proffer is being contradicted by emails between her and Epstein that are now being released today. Mm-hmm. So it's absolute outrage. I understand why Trump's doing it. I understand why his personal attorney, Todd Blanche, is doing it. What I don't understand is all these Republicans in Congress who are facing very tough elections next year remaining silent over this. That just blows me away.
The biggest story for MAGA right now, though, is their meltdown over Trump's interview with Laura Ingraham on Fox. I mean, there's a whole... we could do 2 or 3 episodes on that interview. Again, it was just a shit show from start to finish. It really exposed that Trump has, whether it be the dementia or whether it be just him being dumb, zero intelligence or understanding of anything to do with government, society, and politics and culture. The guy is completely checked out and just, he's a bluffer. He just makes it up on the spot. And the problem is that's fine if you're going for like a job interview at a second-rate office job. But if you're the president of the United States, a lot of it comes back to bite you. One of the issues that the MAGA people are upset about is the H-1B visa question, where he was basically asked, because of the bringing talent into the US versus talent already being here. And his answer, he basically said that there is no talent in the US currently for these jobs. Let's take a look.
There's never going to be a country like what we have right now.
And does that
mean,
the
Republicans have to talk about it, Laura.
And does that mean the H-1B visa thing will not be a big priority for your administration? Because if you want to raise wages for American workers, you can't flood the country with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of foreign workers.
You also do have to bring in talent. When
we have plenty of talented people here.
No, you don't.
We don't have talented people here?
No, you don't have certain talents, and people have to learn. You can't take people off an unemployment line and say, I'm going to put you into a factory where we're going to make missiles, or I'm going to put
How did we ever do it before?
Well,
I'll
give you an example. In Georgia, they raided because they wanted illegal immigrants out. They had people from South Korea that made batteries all their lives. Making batteries are very complicated. It's not an easy thing and very dangerous. A lot of explosions, a lot of problems. They had like 500 or 600 people, early stages, to make batteries and to teach people how to do it. Well, they wanted them to get out of the country. You're going to need that, Laura. I mean, I know you and I disagree on this. You can't just say a country's coming in, going to invest $10 billion to build a plant, and going to take people off an unemployment line who haven't worked in 5 years, and they're going to start making missiles. It doesn't work that way.
You notice that he doesn't ever say the word training, right? Training is like fundamental to this entire argument. And there is nothing in his plan or the government's plan to actually train Americans.
this is a myth. I mean, this is a myth about H-1B visas. This doesn't happen. I mean, the myth that they try to spin is like, these people are brought in to teach Americans how to do these jobs, and then they go home. That's not what happens, man. These people are being brought in mostly from India. The overwhelming number of HB1 visas are to Indians. Like, I think it's something like 80% of the total is from people from India. They are brought in as slave laborers, essentially. They are brought in because these visas can be revoked at any time by the boss, can be revoked tomorrow, and you could be sent home packing. So these people work like dogs. They can't complain. They can't get paid fair wages because they'll immediately be sent home if they do. And that's how these work. And these were people that are replacing Americans because these companies would rather have these slaves from other countries doing these jobs than an American who might complain about having to work 70 hours a week and not getting paid for it. So that's what is really going on. But let me just talk, first of all, a couple things, big picture things. I have never, ever, ever seen MAGA. And, you know, I keep very close tabs. I monitor 1,000 or so MAGA accounts on social media, all the big ones, the big influencers, the media people, all of them. I have never, ever seen them as upset as they were over this interview. And it's not just about the H-1B. That was the number one thing they were upset about. It was many things about this issue. And these are people here with like hundreds of thousands of followers. I'm not, you know, these aren't people screenshots of like nobodies. These aren't like rando nobodies. These are people who are podcasters of hundreds of thousands of following. This is how Trump built the MAGA political movement, is people like this. And they are 100% of them trashing him. 100%. There's literally, you might have like a handful of like paid losers like Benny Johnson and a few others defending him. That's about it. I mean, and I think even Benny Johnson was taking shots at Trump, which is like never happens. So why did this happen? It happened because Laura Ingraham, I mean, I despise Laura Ingraham. I can't stand Laura Ingraham. I think she's one of the worst people on earth. But she did the best interview of Trump I've seen in 4 years. Why? Because she asked questions of him that I have heard gripes from MAGA about his presidency from day one. She took all the complaints that MAGA, that the Fox viewers had about Trump, and went through them one by one and said, this isn't America first. Why are you doing this? Why? And he couldn't defend. His defenses to him were terrible. And so my thinking is, you know, when was the last time Trump got asked about H-1B? It was last Christmas when Musk brought it up. And there was a huge, I remember the whole day, Christmas Day, I was on social media watching MAGA completely melt down over H-1B visas. They were furious. And, you know, hasn't been asked about it since. I mean, how many times does Trump do press interviews in the Oval Office? How many times has he been asked about the Chinese 600,000 Chinese student visas that MAGA is upset about, or these H-1B visas that MAGA is upset about? I mean, mainstream corporate media, because maybe they don't understand the MAGA base or they don't care, never asks him questions about things that are going to infuriate them. They only ask Trump questions about things that infuriate media or infuriate people inside the Beltway. But hey, how about asking him a question about something he's doing that pisses off his own base?
But they do know. I mean, Laura Ingraham, she's not stupid. She knows that she's been facilitating the rise of Trump and MAGA republicanism. She herself is
what she's trying to do is she's trying to either get him to change his mind or trying to get him to walk back. That's what she was trying to do.
But she can see the country collapsing, can't she? I mean, she's not stupid there either.
Throughout the interview, she is wanting Trump to disavow some of these things.
Right.
And he would not. He doubled down time after time after time. And MAGA reaction was just incredulous. They were shocked. And it's like, why did it take 10 months for someone to pin him down on this stuff? Because that's the other thing she didn't do. She didn't let him change the subject. She didn't let him ramble. She interrupted him and she pinned him down until she got the answer. Why does it take Laura Ingraham to do that?
Let's look at her talking to him about the 600,000 Chinese students that could come to the U.S. and why is that a MAGA position is the question. Let's take a look.
Mess around with us, I can tell you that.
A lot of MAGA folks are not thrilled about this idea of hundreds of thousands of foreign students in the United States. We have about 350,000 Chinese. One point during COVID, you were going to, push to, get them out, but that was pulled back. You've said as many as 600,000 Chinese students could come to the United States. Why, sir, is that a pro-MAGA position when so many American kids want to go to school and there are places not for them and these universities are getting rich off Chinese money?
Sure. Never said about China, but we do have a lot of people coming in from China. We always have, China and other countries. We also have a massive system of colleges and universities. And if we were to cut that in half, which perhaps makes some people happy, you would have half the colleges in the United States go out of business.
So what?
Well, I think that's a big deal.
Are they fans
You would have the
of the United States?
Yeah, but you would have, as you know, historically, black colleges and universities would all be out of business. You would have a system of colleges and universities.
So we're dependent on China to keep our university system going?
But I think it's good to have, I actually think it's good to have outside countries. Look, I want to be able to get along with the world.
They're not the French. They're the Chinese. They spy on us. They steal our intellectual property.
What, do you think the French are better?
Yeah.
I mean, really? I don't know. I'll tell you, I'm not so sure. We've had a lot of problems with the French where we get taxed very unfairly on our technology, where, they put 25% taxes on American products. Look, assuming everyone treats us badly, because that's the way I am, but we take in trillions of dollars from students. The students pay more than double when they come in from most foreign countries. I want to see our school system thrive, but at the same time, I know you and I disagree. We're never going to agree on it, but that's okay. And it's not that I want them, but I view it as a business. We have millions and millions of people. Also, I want to get along with countries if possible. People are shocked. Remember, Hillary Clinton said, we'll be in a war. I stopped 8 wars in the last 9 months. I don't want to be in wars. If I am in a war, we're going to win the thing fast, and it'll be violent. But you know what? I don't want to be in wars. But one thing, you don't want to cut half of the people, half of the students from all over the world that are coming into our country, destroy our entire university and college system. I don't want to do that.
I wouldn't lose any.
And don't forget, MAGA was my idea. MAGA was nobody else's idea. I know what MAGA wants better than anybody else. And MAGA wants to see our country thrive.
Yes, the hypocrisy and the contradictions come thick and fast. I mean, if he'd have actually read all of these policies before he became president, like in the weeks before he became president, based on his current position now, he could have just left everything alone. All of it, including tariffs with the French and Chinese students coming. Just leave it as it was, and you would be much happier because the country would thrive. If that is your priority,
that's
the
what he
country
did.
Thriving.
That's what he did in 2017.
Right.
I mean, he basically left everything alone except for the wall. He wanted the wall money, you know, but and everything continued on fine, and he took credit for it. And
that's right.
Could have done the same thing. But, you look at that answer and you just like, there's so many things in there. I could just picturing like Joe MAGA six-pack watching this, Fox viewer, just getting madder and madder and madder. I mean, they don't want these Chinese students here. They want them all gone. They hate elite universities. They're not especially big fans of black colleges, and so here you have Trump saying, look, we need all these Chinese students to come in and take the spots of Americans. That's another thing that they're mad about, that my kid, I hear this all the time from MAGA. My kid can't get into Harvard. My kid can't get into Berkeley. My kid can't get into this college because all the spots are being taken up by all these foreign students paying all this money. So my kid has to go to a state school. I hear this constantly from Republicans. And so what he's saying is tough shit. He's saying we need the money. Well, they help support the American universities with their cash. And Laura Ingraham is like, why do we care about that? We hate universities. We don't like these people. These are liberal elites. Why do we want them to do well? And Trump's like, well, we have to prop up the education system, and it helps black colleges.
Yeah, that was the worst one, especially to her.
He ends up with saying, look, I decide what is MAGA and what is not.
I am MAGA.
If I say you need to like this, you guys need to like this.
Yeah.
I mean, just everything he said in that answer made them more mad.
This is not going to end well for Trump or for MAGA, or maybe even for Laura Ingram's friendship with Donald Trump, because, you know, she has been protecting him for so many years.
Yep.
And they all do it. Hannity does it. They steer him in interviews and they give him ideas because he comes in, you know, as a completely empty vessel. But now it seems that he's actually got some positions. I mean, at the end of the day, Trump is a Democrat. He's a liberal.
She was the first one who legitimately confronted him with, like, look, the base is not happy about a lot of the stuff you're doing. And let me run through the list of grievances that they have. And he's hearing a lot of this for the first time. And
I don't think
I
he
give her
cares
credit.
about the
As much
base.
as I hate her, I give her credit for doing that. You know?
I know that was difficult for you, but well done for that. Yeah, I think that now that they're in, and the line, you know, if you vote this time, you won't have to vote again. And I don't need your votes, I got plenty of votes and all that stuff. Now I think that all of that is coming to fruition, that Trump genuinely, and the people around him think that, well, we're in now, we don't need the base. All that stuff with rallies and merchandise, that's all ancient history. Now we control everything. We can do what we want and say what we want.
I have seen across reading hundreds of MAGA, influencer stuff, they're all saying, we're not showing up in the midterms.
Yeah.
And I think they already weren't going to show up because they have never shown up when Trump is not on the ballot. I'm talking about MAGA people that have no loyalty to the Republican Party. Their only reason why they would show up and vote in any midterm election when Trump's not on the ballot is because he asked them to do it. You know, he twisted their arm, he pushed them to do it. And so some of them would show up for that reason. But now, if they're all pissed off at Trump, they don't like Lindsey Graham. They don't like, Lindsey's in a safe spot, but they don't like some of these Republicans running for Senate and House. Mike Lawler, you think MAGA gives a shit about Mike Lawler? They don't care about Kevin Kiley in California in a swing district. They don't care about these people. John Cornyn, you think they care? You think MAGA cares about John Cornyn in Texas? So if they don't show up, this could be a bloodbath because you have Democrats that are so motivated to show up and vote like never before.
Yes.
You have independents who have completely turned on Trump. You have Hispanic voters that have completely flipped on Trump over the deportations. Young male voters are even flipping on Trump. Now, if you don't have MAGA show up because they're mad at Trump, this could be a bloodbath for the Republicans. It really could.
We have to take a quick break, but we'll come back and do more, including Laura Ingraham questioning some of the new decoration in the Oval Office and asking if it's really from Home Depot. That's all to come on Uncovered. The guys at True Classic started with a simple mission to bring premium, comfortable clothing to the masses, because looking and feeling great shouldn't come with a designer price tag. And clearly people agree. People vote with their dollars, and True Classic has sold over 25 million shirts to more than 5 million customers and is racking up over 200,000 five-star reviews. Now, the brand isn't just about fabric or fit, it's about helping guys show up every day with confidence and purpose. Their shirts fit where they should, feel incredible, and don't break the bank. You get that tailored look without sacrificing comfort or blowing your budget. I've been wearing True Classic for a while now, and you can feel the difference the moment you throw one on. It's tailored where you want it, relaxed where you need it. No bunching, no stiff fabric, no BS, just a clean, effortless fit that actually works for real life. So forget overpriced designer brands. Skip the cheap throwaway stuff. True Classic is built for comfort, built to last, and built to give back. You can find them on Amazon, Target, Costco, Sam's Club, or head to trueclassic.com/uncovered to try them out for yourself. Have you ever fallen in love with something online only to see the price and then think, I just can't afford it? Well, that's where dupe.com comes in. It's a genius tool that helps you find high-quality, budget-friendly versions of the expensive items you've been eyeing. It's really easy to use. Just type dupe.com/ in front of any product URL. And It shows you lookalikes that won't drain your savings account. And these aren't shady knockoffs. Most of the time, they're made in exactly the same factories, just sold under a different name, with a way scarier price tag. So that $6,000 couch that influencers are always lounging on, dupe will probably find it for $1,200. Same vibe, same plushness, but you don't have to sell a kidney to afford it. It's totally free, dangerously addictive, and blowing up on TikTok for good reason. So, if you've got expensive taste but not the budget to go with it, dupe.com is your new best friend. Go ahead and make your dream home happen without maxing out on your credit card. And here's the kicker. For a limited time, the first 10,000 people who go to dupe.com/uncovered will get 500 dupe points instantly, redeemable for gift cards, no catch. But spots are limited, so don't wait. Use your dupe points and gift cards to make the most of your holiday shopping. Go to dupe.com/uncovered. Welcome back to the pack. Laura Ingraham, as we were just discussing, she must be reading the criticism of Trump, because when they did this tour of the Oval Office and she started pointing out the gold things and she's saying, "You sure that's not from Home Depot?" Now, there is proof that these things that he's attached to the wall and sprayed gold are from Home Depot. And a lot of influencers on Instagram and TikTok have been showing the AB of it from the Home Depot website. So, I mean, it's a real thing, but just watching him lie and deny it is just 15 seconds of a little light relief.
The one thing with gold,
Why not
you can't imitate gold, real gold. There's no paint that imitates
So
gold.
these aren't like from Home Depot or something?
No, this is not Home Depot stuff.
No, not stuff you buy.
This is not Home Depot.
It's Home Depot. That place is starting to look more and more like the Kremlin every single day. I mean, what is happening?
Yeah, I mean, that looks exactly. The thing is, when we saw that, it looks exactly like the Kremlin. When we first saw the first pictures when he started this project, and I think those were the ones that were most people saw that were widely circulated, I don't know, maybe a month ago when he first started doing this, there was a lot of gold. But I can tell you, he's not done. He keeps adding more and more.
Yep.
They're literally like every single thing they can put gold on, they're doing.
Yeah.
I've been watching the evolution. They are still golding out, tricking out. They're still adding things to the walls.
Right.
I mean, the latest pictures from this week, it's literally hard to find anything that's not gold. It looks ridiculous. It looks like Saddam Hussein's palace or something, or some kind of cheap casino. It's just really, we talked a lot about the ballroom and stuff, but the thing is, every time like a foreign leader comes in too, he's always showing them around and trying to impress them with the gold. Like, look at all this gold. And it's like, is he aware at all that like most people aren't enthralled with gold? Like most people aren't like King Midas, and they're not obsessed with everything being gold. I mean, this is his fetish, but he thinks, I guess, that this is like impresses people, when in reality, people look at this. I mean, I picture like a prime minister of Great Britain or France or wherever in Germany coming in here and looking at this stuff going, what the hell happened to this place?
Well, it's not just gauche, but it's a desecration of the people's house.
Yeah.
And that is the saddest part of this, is that nobody asked for this. And at a time when, SNAP benefits are disappearing and people are disappearing, society, this is just pushing him further and further away from the people that he is going to rely on to vote for him and his supported candidates going forward. This is a terrible mistake. And I've said this before, but, the demolition of the East Wing really is a metaphor for this shit show authoritarian administration.
The White House
at night.
The White House, I mean, there's been a couple, and there's a couple different remodels and stuff over the centuries, but it's always been specifically understated since Washington. I mean,
respectfully done
for a reason.
Yeah.
Because the idea was, you want to project humility. You want to project that this is a citizen who is temporarily elevated to this position and who will leave. This is not a king. This is not a ruler.
It's not his house.
It's not opulence. It's
Yeah.
the people's house. And it's supposed to be nice, but understated. And obviously we now have somebody in there who does not believe in the philosophy of any of his predecessors with respect to how this house is supposed to present to the public.
He's not leaving, Ron. I mean, is it not obvious to people yet?
Seems to be settled in, right?
Yeah, you literally don't decorate this much when you plan to give it to somebody else. He had the Syrian leader in the Oval Office. I mean, this is also problematic. Again, this desire to cozy up to dictators, to feel at home with baddies. I mean, that's just how it is now. He can only be surrounded by the worst people on the planet. Let's see him with the Syrian leader in the Oval Office and how he responds to the question about him having a rough past.
Them joining the NTI.
Yeah, you can expect some announcements on Syria. We want to see Syria become a country that's very successful, and I think this leader can do it. I really do. I think this leader can do it. And people said he's had a rough past. We've all had rough pasts, but he has had a rough past, and I think, frankly, if you didn't have a rough past, you wouldn't have a chance. He gets along very well with Turkey, with President Erdogan, who's a great leader. Erdogan's a great leader.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not joining the dots with all this stuff, then you really kind of have your head in the sand about, and I extend that opinion even to major news networks as well, and even those outside of the UK. I mean, I think that, like the BBC are apologising to Trump. By the way, they just announced that they're going to do a formal apology before Friday so they don't get sued.
Probably they're not writing him a check.
Right, but this is cozying up to dictators, and if Trump wasn't a former reality TV show star and a kind of, clown with war paint on, if he looked like Adolf Hitler and had the hair and the mustache and the swastika on his arm, would they be playing around with him in the same way that they are and not taking him as seriously? And just because he behaves like a joke, it doesn't mean that he is not extremely dangerous. And it makes me crazy that people are like, oh, well, because I'm about to show the clip of him spraying cologne onto the Syrian leader's neck. And it's like, by doing this clowny stuff, it dilutes the seriousness of the dictatorship.
Exactly. Look, when, Trump first embraced the new Syrian leader 6 months or so ago, I went to my sources of people that I really trust, Middle East foreign policy analysts from around the world, and they sort of talked me off the ledge on this because I was like, what the hell are we doing? Because look, when he says checkered path, this is a former Al-Qaeda leader. This is somebody who has cut off heads of people with machetes and held their heads up in his hands. That's who this person's literally like held severed heads up. I've seen the videos.
And now he's in the Oval Office.
He is executed. Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he overthrew Assad. He disavowed his past. And I think the people that I trust, who I read, said, let's give him a chance. This could be a good thing. It's better than Assad. He may be genuine in his, denunciations of his past and affiliations and all of that. So I said, okay. And I kind of didn't say anything more about this guy. And now here he is in the Oval Office being treated like, so it's one thing to like, okay, we're going to recognize him as the legitimate leader of Syria. We're going to establish ties. We'll let them open an embassy here, which was the occasion for his visit, was that we were going to allow Syria to open an embassy in the United States for the first time in many decades. And so that's fine. Establish legitimate diplomatic ties and all of that. Even economic ties, fine. But to have him into the Oval Office and to treat him like a friend, to treat him basically the same as you would treat, the UK PM, and put your arm around him and kiss him and hug him and all of that. This is not really what we need to be doing right now. And I can tell you that clip right there was yet another clip that infuriated MAGA. They were pissed about this visit. People like Laura Loomer and others or very much, anti-Islamic stuff. I mean, here they just spent months denouncing Mandami, for supposedly being sympathetic to, jihad and all of that, about his past statements. And they're all outraged about that. And yet Trump is hosting an Al-Qaeda leader like he's his pal.
And giving him some cologne and perfume for his wife, and asks him, well, how many wives do you have?
Men's fragrance. Yeah. This is it's the best fragrance. Come here, man. I have more here, sir. Okay. So what we'll do is just take that, Joe, put it in, and then the other one is for your wife. How many wives? You guys never know, right?
He's like a greeter at the Disney store who gives you a freebie as you leave because there's a promotion on, and just pop one of those Mickey Mouse things in the bag for the kid, just as a sweetener, and then they'll come back. I mean, that really is the job that Trump should have had. He should have been a greeter at a Disney store. Like, that's as high as it should ever have gone. And yet somehow this guy is entertaining a former Al-Qaeda operative in the Oval Office and covering him in golden gifts.
He's whipping out the Trump cologne. I mean, that's his Trump fragrance is what it's called. Yeah. So he has this, who think about that. He has this guy come in and he goes, let's give him a gift. Let's give him a gift of Trump fragrance. And how about this? I despise perfume and cologne. Like, I just hate it. I can't stand it. I can't stand to be around people who wear a lot of it, male or female. I'm just don't like it. Okay. So I think a lot of people don't. I mean, there are plenty that do. Fine. But the point is, if somebody came up to me and sprayed it on me, and look, they're not doing that consensually. He didn't ask them, would you like me to spray? These guys are from Syria. They're in the Oval Office, and he starts spraying it on. What are they supposed to do? They don't want the shit sprayed on them. And then but
it could have been a chemical weapon, Ron.
Pushing his Trump fragrance
in
the Oval Office. Number two, you got him spraying it on these guys against their will. I don't even know if they have religious objections to cologne. I don't know.
Right.
But then number three, then he says to him, how many wives do you have? You never know with these guys, with these Arab guys.
And
sometimes they have a lot of
slap.
wives.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Yeah, the reaction that I saw from the Syrian president there is this a chemical weapon? Like, is the guy about to take me out in front of the cameras?
He didn't look happy. I mean, he was kind of had to play along, but he looked uncomfortable.
Well, anybody that hangs out with Trump plays along and is uncomfortable. That's just the reality of this. And that is why it is what I was saying earlier about these moments. Trump can't help himself. He cannot behave presidential because at heart he is a child, a damaged child who hates himself. And these are moments of levity that he needs to kind of feel normal, like he's integrating into society, when in fact he has been isolated most of his life. I see huge sadness in these moments. And I really worry that that's why it's important that the BBC doesn't capitulate to this creature, because he is dangerous. And I don't know, I'm feeling very nervous about the future, because I see him imploding in many ways. The falling asleep, and combined with his reaction moving aircraft carriers, and there's a lot of crazy stuff going on right now. I'm worried for us.
He's going to do something to distract from Epstein. It could be a war with Venezuela. But
that's quite the distraction, Ron.
Looking like the case.
If shooting Venezuelan fishermen was not enough of a distraction, what's he going to do? Put boots on the ground?
We're over 80 people now he's murdered. Yeah.
And
while pardoning drug traffickers here in the United States who are rich Republicans.
Well, talking of that, let's kind of get into that story, because who is this guy? a drug dealer freed by Trump, now convicted of molesting his kid's nanny and assaulting toddler, is the headline in the New York Post. What's the backstory here?
I mean, there aren't many people who like beat the drum on these Trump pardons. I mean, everybody. I honestly wish like that a lot of Democrats and a lot of media would put the same energy into other things that they do into January 6th. Because I think as important as January 6th was, there is an almost over obsession with it in terms of like, I think so many voters and so many of the American public doesn't want to hear about it anymore. And that's terrible. And that's unfortunate. I wish they did, but they don't. But we have all these new outrages every day. And it's like, we keep going back to January 6th. And I'm like, why aren't we talking about like the pardons that he did today? And so I continue to chronicle them like every single day, and one more outrageous than the next. So this was a guy who, well, just this week, so the Congressman Hirschberger pardoned her husband, who was convicted of Medicare fraud, who was for years prescribed giving Chinese drugs to his patients and telling them that they were like FDA approved American drugs and billing Medicaid for them when he was skimming because he was getting the generics from China for much cheaper and billing Medicaid as if they were like FDA approved American drugs. Pardon that guy, by the way. Because why? Because he's rich, Republican, and his wife is a Republican member of Congress. So you have that guy. Then you have this other one. So this guy, Trump, commuted his sentence. He was serving 10 years for drug trafficking, along with the Silk Road drug trafficker, by the way. He's pardoned multiple drug traffickers. So while he's blowing up people on boats because they're supposedly trafficking drugs, so they don't get a trial and they deserve to be executed, the same time he's doing that, he's literally letting drug traffickers out of prison every other day because they have money or they have connections. So this was a guy, he commuted his sentence. He was doing 10 years for drug trafficking, let him out. And he sexually assaulted his nanny. He assaulted a 3-year-old child. He defrauded multiple people in business transactions. And now he was just sent back to prison by a federal judge. Maybe Trump will pardon him again. But the point is that so many of these people, including many of the January 6ers that Trump has pardoned, have reoffended and committed more crime.
Right.
He just went through a presidential campaign where he took 2 or 3 crimes committed by migrants who came into the country when Joe Biden was president and blew them up and made them famous and did bold big commercials. And yet this guy is letting people out of prison left and right, and they're committing more terrible crimes. And it almost seems like the public and the media doesn't care. Well, I'm just going to keep highlighting him and keep putting him out there. And like Nancy Mace today was talking about, Eric Swalwell slept with a Chinese spy, which is false. Okay. So I just attached Trump literally pardoned a Chinese spy last week.
Yep.
Trump pardoned a Chinese spy in New York,
yep.
Someone who was hired by the Chinese government to go after dissidents that had fled to the United States in New York City. Trump pardoned a Chinese spy last week. And they're talking about Swalwell, supposedly.
The priorities are all wrong. The priorities are all wrong.
I'll just keep bringing these pardons up. Even if I'm the only one, I'm going to keep bringing them up. There's one guy, Kenneth Vogel, who writes for the New York Times, who does all the stories on the Trump pardons. And so he's a good guy to follow if you care about this.
Thank you. I know you don't want to mention January 6th, but pardoning Sidney Powell and John Eastman and Rudy Giuliani and the fake electors.
I don't mind it, but the thing is, here's what Trump did. He pardoned them knowing that they were going to get all the attention, even though he pardoned them. That was largely symbolic because none of them are being prosecuted federally.
Yes.
So his pardons really were meaningless. But he did that specifically knowing that the media would go after that shiny object. Mm-hmm. When on the same day he pardoned a Chinese spy, a drug trafficker,
understood,
the husband. So it's like no one paid attention to these other pardons, which were way worse because everybody got distracted by the Rudy pardon, and which had no legal significance whatsoever. That's Trump's game, and I refuse to fall for that game.
It's very interesting, isn't it? Because he doesn't seem smart enough to play those kind of games, but unfortunately that is baked into that kind of criminal DNA. And that's something that we need to be very aware of. In fact, that leads us to this clip, which I think is the mother of all clips, that you shared with me quite late before we were about to come on air. And this is where Caroline Leavitt basically uses the shutdown as cover for the dismal inflation and for the jobs numbers and everything. I mean, this sums up all of this criminality. And I mean, I remember I texted Ben a few weeks ago before just as the shutdown was kind of underway, and I was like, they're definitely going to use this shutdown as an excuse to say that the reason why the economy is not bouncing back is because of the Democrat shutdown. And I appeal to you, watch this clip, because it exposes the entire thinking of how the Trump regime is going to operate going forward.
Economists, investors, and policymakers at the Federal Reserve to receive critical government data. The Democrats may have permanently damaged the federal statistical system, with October CPI and jobs reports likely never being released. And all of that economic data released will be permanently impaired, leaving our policymakers at the Fed flying blind at a critical period.
Okay, so I'm going to play it again in a minute, but I just want us to decode it first. Yep. So what she's effectively saying, and we've been saying for a few weeks, that by Trump taking control of the information supply, he is now the Ministry of Information. So he fired the statisticians. He didn't like the inflation numbers, didn't like the jobs numbers. So he gets rid of any kind of impartial individuals or federal workers whose job it is to actually crunch these numbers, and then takes control of the numbers themselves. But now this is like another layer on top, which is blaming the Democrats for the shutdown. The shutdown has screwed Trump's plans, and therefore that there are no numbers anymore, and that actually we're never going to know how the country is doing because we just have to take their word for it.
Yeah, there's a guy, I think his first name is Adam Kobiesi, who just did some good reporting on this recently about what's going on behind the scenes at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, because we know that he fired the previous director who reported jobs numbers he didn't like, fired her that night, and sought to replace her with some hack who couldn't even get confirmed.
Well, it was a Heritage Foundation person.
Yeah, now they're working on, they got a new nominee, but then the shutdown comes around and they use that as the excuse to shut down the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Oh, we can't put out any jobs numbers or inflation numbers for October. Meanwhile, like Wall Street, the Fed, everybody, they were all like hyperventilating. They're like, we need these numbers to decide what we're going to do with everything, with investments, forecasts, everything. And we don't have numbers. And so they're having to rely on private data. And the private data reports are horrendous.
Well, they're actually worse than the government.
The private
numbers.
Sector job, they lost 50,000 jobs, private sector. In October alone, which is incredible. That's just private sector. So, so they use the excuse, the shutdown, we can't do nothing. Now you can keep BLS staff in place if you really wanted to, but of course they didn't want to. They sent them all home. So now I heard on CNBC a couple days ago, they were saying, oh, great. Now that the shutdown's over, we're going to get our jobs report. We're going to get our consumer price index report, our inflation report for October. This is what we've been waiting for. Let's go. And Leavitt comes out today in a press conference and says, there's probably not going to be a report on any of that for October because of the Democrats, because of the shutdown. We're not able to go back and figure all this stuff out. And maybe we might never be able to.
Yeah.
This shutdown might have permanently destroyed the Bureau of Labor Statistics, so we can no longer report accurate data. Look, this is what dictatorships do. Mm-hmm. This is what authoritarian regimes do. They monkey with the numbers, and that results in economic turmoil and disaster because markets can't trust anything. The Federal Reserve doesn't know what to do.
Well, it becomes a fake economy, effectively. I mean, and Trump admitted that in the interview with Laura Ingraham. He said the problem is the Republicans need to go out and they need to talk up the economy more. Like, that's the only bit that needs to be done, because he reckons $17 trillion worth of investment has come into the U.S. Where is it? It doesn't exist. And so there's going to come a point where you can only talk about the investment for so long before it refuses to materialize. And then the economy is going to crash. I mean, this is a recession.
The economy is in much worse shape than any than people realize. The underneath, below the surface numbers are dreadful. And, you know, the Trump administration is out there all over the TV with the happy face. Everything's going to be great. Everything's going to turn around. It's not. It's going to get worse. I'm really, because that Caroline said that at 1:00 today, this afternoon. So I'm very interested in watching CNBC tomorrow and the financial reporters to see what the reaction is among the economists in the market to what she just said, because they were banking on getting these numbers, and now she's saying they're not getting them. That, you know, I'll watch the markets tomorrow. I don't know what they did today, but you know, she said that kind of late in the day today. So
I want to play it again, because now that we've explained it, people can understand, and just you can see her lie. I mean, she's very good at this. Trump loves it. He talks about her lips. She's his star, but she's his star.
Lips, he says.
Yeah, exactly for this reason.
Economists, investors, and policymakers at the Federal Reserve to receive critical government data. The Democrats may have permanently damaged the federal statistical system, with October CPI and jobs reports likely never being released. And all of that economic data released will be permanently impaired, leaving our policymakers at the Fed flying blind at a critical period.
Yeah. The other financial issue...
The numbers were dreadful, and they know it. That's why they're not releasing it.
The other issue is that the Supreme Court is due to rule on whether the tariffs are legal or not, and Trump's entire economic policy is based on these tariffs. And didn't he post saying that, you know, they don't even have the money to reimburse if that's what happens? He basically says the U.S. Supreme Court was given the wrong numbers. The unwind in the event of a negative decision on tariffs would be, including investments made, to be made, and return of funds in excess of $3 trillion. It would not be possible to ever make up for that kind of drubbing. That would truly become an insurmountable national security event and devastating to the future of our country, possibly non-sustainable. Well, that's just gibberish, isn't it? But what is the reality here? If they rule against him, then tariffs that have been taken in need to be returned.
This is a really, really important point. And there were a couple of the justices that were hung up on this point, which is, I think a lot of them want to overturn the tariffs and want to side that Congress has this power and tariffs are a tax. But I think what's giving some of them some angst, some concern is what happens if they make that ruling.
Right. There's nothing
and
else.
So they asked both lawyers on both sides, Katdal and what's the guy's name? Souter, whoever the other guy's, Sauer. Is the Trump's lawyer, the Solicitor General, asked him, well, how's this going to work then? Because if we rule that these tariffs were illegal, that means you have to refund all the money you've collected. So they asked them how much has been collected. And based on Trump administration numbers, they said between 150 billion and 200 billion. Well, you see there, Trump is saying, oh, no, it's more like 3 trillion. But he's saying that including investments. I mean, again, any number Trump throws out is fantasy. But what Trump is trying to say there is, if it's only 150 billion, that's one thing. But if it's 3 trillion, that annihilates the economy if the government has to hand over 3. Of course, it's not 3 trillion. It's somewhere around 150, 175 billion. But then the question is, how is that going to work? Because so they're going to order. So now the government is ordered to refund to all the companies are the ones who paid in the money that after they collect. Some of the companies are saying that they passed the tariffs on to consumers. Some of them are saying they ate the tariff. Some of them say it was a combination of things where they ate half the tariff. So if the government has to refund all this money, then you're going to have deficit issues. We already have the deficit exploding. Now we've just lost all this revenue. We also know that Trump is claimed to have tapped into some of this money during the shutdown to pay military and pay different workers. So maybe I think the reason why he's panicking is the money's not there. It's gone. He spent it. And I don't trust Scott Bessent is telling us where a lot of the money is going that's in the United States Treasury. I think some of it might have been monkeyed with. So Trump is hyperventilating because if he has to give it back and he doesn't have it, that's going to be a big problem. And then the next question is going to be, after these companies get the money, consumers are going to be like, where's my 10% back on this toaster that I bought? And so you're going to have all these customers who are going to want part of their purchase price back. So it's just going to be a complete nightmare. But I don't see that the Supreme Court really has much choice here. They did. I mean, I know some people thought, most Democrats believe the Supreme Court is going to side with Trump. I've already on record saying I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be especially close. I think it's going to be 6-3, 7-2 decision against Trump on this, just because they're standing up for Article 1. They're standing up for.
But also remember that the Federalist Society, who are behind a lot of the Supreme Court positions, and the Heritage Foundation, which is behind Project 2025, these people are all for free trade. They don't actually believe in tariffs. It's only Trump that has got this idea of tariffs that he's brought with him from the 80s.
I posted at least 100. I posted this on social media this week. At least 100 members of Congress, Republicans, are secretly rooting for Trump to lose this case. They are. Yeah. They hate the tariffs.
Yeah. Well, because it was supposed to come through them anyway, and they never got a say. So, I mean, if this becomes a legal case in the future, if Trump lives that long, the amount of the litany of crimes that he has committed against the United States would keep him and Caroline Leavitt and Besant and all of them in the dock for many, many years. It'll never happen, but, hope springs eternal. We have to finish, but Ron, thanks for everything today. The audio podcast drops later. You can download that this evening and share the show, rewind, watch again, comment down below, check out our sponsors, and join us next Wednesday for another Uncovered. Thank you, Ron.
All right. See you next week, everyone.